Father! No! Hello and welcome to Mark's Gaming Den Shenmue Retrospective. I've got fond memories of the Shenmue games, starting with Shenmue 1 on the Dreamcast. This was released in December 1999 and was reportedly, well, it was actually at the time, the most ambitious and the most expensive game ever made, with a cost of $70 million to create the original game. I have such fond memories of playing this on the Dreamcast and I absolutely loved it. A few years later in 2001 we had the release of Shenmue 2 and it had an ending which needed obviously the third in the series, but because the Dreamcast platform died, Shenmue 2 came out on the original Xbox, and then after that it just kind of fell away, and the Shenmue games became, I don't know, well, they just had a bit of a cult following after that. Like every year at E3 people would be saying, when are we going to see a Shenmue 3? When are we going to see a Shenmue 3? And you know, we finally got the release of Shenmue 3 in 2019. You know, that's a lot of years. You know, it's 18 years later than Shenmue 2. And, you know, that's a long wait. You know, people have been born, finished school and started work in between the time between Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 3. What was interesting is with the Shenmue series, the main creator is a guy called Yu Suzuki, and he's always worked, and he's worked for Sega for a long time, and he's always been very ambitious. He left Sega, and with Shenmue 3 in 2015 they started a Kickstarter to raise the funds for Shenmue 3. Now this at the time became the quickest and most funded project on the Kickstarter platform, and it went way over its initial expectations. So they got it fully funded, and I am proud to say that I was one of the people that pledged to the Kickstarter. So 2015 was the was when the Kickstarter went live, and Shenmue 3 didn't release until November the 19th 2019. So you know, it took a long while. But anyway, I'm rambling. The original Shenmue came out, as I say, in 1999. And so basically this is set in 1986, Yokosuka, Japan. And the beginning of the game, you start playing as Ryu, and you witness your father being killed in the family dojo by a Chinese man called Lan Di. And Lan Di is after this mysterious stone artifact called the Dragon Mirror. So basically the original game is, you know, well, all the games are you trying to get revenge on Lan Di, the man who killed your father. And at the time when it came out on the Dreamcast, it was way ahead of its time. You know, with the graphics, in my opinion, the graphics still hold up very well even today. There was some HD remasters that came out for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and the PC, but they were literally just the original engines and just up-resed a little bit, which is fine. You know, I feel, I mean, I played through them both on the Xbox One and I had a blast. I really enjoyed playing them, and going back and playing these games now, it's just quite interesting because you can see how video games have come on in those years, and you can see that the Shenmue games 1 and 2 were kind of the start of something fresh, something new, with the voice acting, the world building, and just the overall way the game just makes you feel. It at the time, it was just that sprawling open world. It felt so realistic. I mean, the only thing now is if you go back, the voice acting feels very cheesy. It's very wooden in a strange sort of way. But I like that they kept that going with Shenmue 3. Because it just made it feel like an older Shenmue game. I mean, Shenmue 3 felt like a Shenmue game that should have come out in like 2005, but with really nice graphics. But Shenmue 1, at the time, it was groundbreaking. It looked amazing, and as I say, the fact that you could walk into a bar and play pool or play darts, those simple things that we kind of take for granted these days in modern games, it was a revolution at the time. It really, really was. But yeah, so with Shenmue 1, it starts in 1986. Ryu, who you play, he returns to his family dojo, and he witnesses a confrontation between his father and Lan Di. As I've mentioned before, he's after the stone artifact Dragon Mirror. He threatens to kill Ryu, and Iowo, who is his karate instructor, tells him where the mirror is buried. It's buried under the cherry blossom tree. Lan Di's men dig up the mirror. So anyway, it's quite funny because you look back at the original Shenmue now, and one of the first thing that pops to my head when I think of the original Shenmue is spending a lot of time looking for sailors. and so you go around, you don't have any waypoints, it's just pure exploration, as old school games are. So you're going down to the town and you're just going on going, and it says it says in the exact same tone every time, hey, have you seen any sailors around here? And most of the people are like, no. And then you find out they're at this certain bar, and because the game is trying to be realistic, you can only do things at a certain time. It has an actual day and night cycle, so you're like, right, I need to go to the bar after a certain time. And it's quite interesting because your investigation in the original game takes you to the harbour, and you get a job driving forklift trucks. And it's actually, it's a running joke with the original Shenmue. You do spend quite a lot of time just driving a forklift truck around the warehouses, just delivering crates from one to another, and it is quite monotonous. But at the time, it was quite interesting. It's quite fun. It's quite interesting. Anyway, so later on in the game, when you're at the harbour, Ryu learns that the dragon mirror taken by Lan Di is one of two mirrors. The second mirror is called the Phoenix Mirror, and Ryu finds that one as well. He finds that one, and it's in a basement hidden beneath his father's dojo. And then later on in the game, he defeats a local gang of Lan Di's goons, and Master Chen, who is, well, he's a karate master, tells Ryu to seek aid of another kung fu master in Hong Kong. So the end of the original Shenmue ends with Ryu boarding a boat to China. And that was quite an interesting thing at the time, because when I originally played Shenmue, it felt like this big open world game, but when I recently played it a few years ago, I actually realised how small the world is, because you've got your house and your dojo, and then you've got the small town, and you've got the docks, and that's the whole of the original Shenmue. But at the time, it just felt just so immersive, because the cool thing is as well, right? You can, you could go into the arcade and play classic Sega games like Super Hang-On and various other games. And at the time, that's like, it's mind bending. It's like I'm playing a game within a game. Like, what the hell's going on here? It's pretty awesome. So anyway, we had to wait a couple of years for the second Shenmue, and this was actually a lot bigger than the original game. The game starts with you getting off the boat and you go into Hong Kong, and near the beginning of the game, from memory, it's been a while since I played this, you have your backpack stolen off you by some thieves, and it sets off this whole spiral where you meet a gang leader who is a motorcyclist, and she's called Joy, and you need to find this person called Wanda Zhu, who sent Ryu's father a letter warning him of Landy's intentions. And then a bit later on, there's a lot goes on in Shenmue 2, and what I really liked about it was it just felt a bit more. What's the word? It just felt a bit more exciting than the original. I mean, they still had that exploration, but it just feels like you had a lot of stuff going on, and you meet a colourful cast of characters. Most notably is a character called Ren, who has a bandana and a blue jacket, and he actually pops up again in Shenmue 3, which is pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff happens in Shenmue 2. And same in the original Shenmue, you could go to the arcades and play these arcade games, and there's all these other traditional games that you can play. I forget the name of it, but you can put like a marble into these pin boards, and it drops down, and it's got circle and an X at the bottom, and if you win money, and and those things are quite fun. But anyway, Shenmue 2 was actually really, really interesting because it has this walled city in the game, and you go there at some point because one of your friends is kidnapped, and you see Lan Di, but you don't fight him. He departs on a helicopter. But you find out more about the mirrors. So the mirrors reveal. So the mirrors will lead to the resurrection of the Qing dynasty, the last imperial dynasty of China. And then you find out that Ryu needs to continue his search about these mirrors in a small village of Bailu in Guilin, and that is where Lan Di is heading. So towards the end of Shenmue 2, you go to Guilin village, and Ryu meets a teenage girl called Shenhua Ling. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And her family is connected to the legacy of the Dragon and Phoenix mirrors, and she leads Ryu to a stone quarry on the outskirts of the village to meet her father, but discovers her father is missing. And it just ends on a cliffhanger, Shenmue 2, and you're like, oh man. And at the time when I played, I was like, oh man, I can't wait for Shenmue 3, it's going to be awesome. And then we waited and we waited and we waited some more. It took a long time, 18 years, long old time. That's a hell of a wait. So anyway, Shenmue 3 was a really, really big surprise when it got announced in 2015, and they started off the Kickstarter. Now, I really enjoyed Shenmue 3. I thought it was really, really good, and I liked that it kept that art style. So obviously the original two games came out a long time ago. There was an 18-year gap between Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 3, but as soon as I put in Shenmue 3 and started playing it, it automatically felt right. It felt like they'd actually used a very similar engine for Shenmue 3 that they did in Shenmue 1 and 2. The characters looked very similar, and it just all looked like that art style. So they really did a good job of doing the fan service. So one thing I really liked about Shenmue 3 is you spend a lot of time in the first village, and it picks up where Shenmue 2 left off. You need to find the father, Shenhua's missing father, who's a stonemason, and he actually built the stone mirrors. So throughout the game, you spend a lot of time in Bailu village, as I said, and then after a while you explore the village and you do some cool stuff there. I don't want to spoil it too much for people because some people probably haven't played it yet. I've spoiled the first two games, but they're really old, so apologies, but they're super old. Yeah, so you spend a lot of time in that first village, but then you move across to quite a big town later on in the game, which you explore quite a lot, and a lot of cool stuff happens within the story. But anyway, towards the end of the game, you do see Lan Di again, but unfortunately Ryu is still not strong enough, even after you spend quite a lot of the game of Shenmue 3 trying to learn more moves and You know, it can be, and you know, you can build up your skills and strength. You can spend a lot of time doing it in Shenmue 3. And actually, I know one of my good friends is a martial artist, and a lot of the stuff that you do in the game is actually real things that people do to learn martial arts in real life. Like doing the certain stances by the wooden dummy and the way you fight the dummies and all that sort of jazz. So anyway, Shenmue 3 is a great game from start to finish. All the environments look really, really lush, and the characters you meet along the way, old characters do make a reappearance. And again, I love how it's that old school style as well, even though it's a modern game. You know, only came out a couple of years ago. It keeps those old school styles, so there's no waypoints on the mini map, so you actually spend your time soaking in the locations and the graphics, and then just exploring and going and talking to people. It's one of those games that I just love playing from start to finish, because a lot of it is just very relaxing. There's not a lot of fighting or anything like that. It's just very relaxing, and the fighting is enjoyable. It does feel a bit wooden at times, and it does get quite difficult because you need to do your timings and stuff, but I really loved it. But the thing is, right, Shenmue 3, I thought it was going to be the end of a trilogy, but no. Shenmue 3 ended on a proper cliffhanger, and now we're waiting to see if there's even going to be a Shenmue 4. But there are some good hints that there is going to be a Shenmue 4. So, Yu Suzuki, who is the developer for Shenmue 4, he did an interview with Famitsu magazine, which is the biggest gaming publication in Japan, where he says he's going to be starting a new open world project in 2020. And there's been also a tweet from one of the producers, Cedric Biscay. He says that they're going to be moving on to the next steps after Shenmue 3. So all these things feel quite promising. But I think we're in for a long wait, people, for Shenmue 4. But I have high hopes that they're going to be doing it. I do not think that Shenmue 4 is going to be the end, though. I think they're going to make it. I think they're going to do 2 more games, maybe more. But I just hope I'm not dead before they make the final game. That would be very, very sad. So anyway, all 3 games, if you haven't played any of the Shenmue games, what are you waiting for? They are really, really good. They're all English voice acted, and even the original 2 games hold up very, very well, as I said before, when you can play the remasters on the Xbox One, PS4 and the PC. It's very, very cheap to get hold of as well. Even Shenmue 3's dropped in price quite a lot, so you could pick up all 3 for probably 40 quid or less. And it's a great series, yeah, but it's quite funny because after Shenmue 2, because obviously it was published by Sega, they kind of dropped it, and the same dev team actually started the Yakuza series, so that's why there's a lot of similarities between the original Shenmue games and the Yakuza series. And I believe one of the reasons why there wasn't a part 3 of Shenmue was because the Yakuza series became extremely popular and Sega wanted to focus on that, so that's where all the resources went. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this rundown of the Shenmue games. I mean, I could talk about these games forever, but I don't want to be wasting any of your time, to be honest. But I highly recommend them. They're one of my favourite game series. And if you want a relaxing time exploring some beautiful locations, maybe with some bad voice acting, hey, give it a shot. You know, they're all great games, and you know, I envy those people that haven't played them, because you know, you're in for a wild ride with these games. Anyway, as always, you can find me on Twitter at MarksGamingDen. Also, if you'd like to support the podcast, 360 Gamercast, which can be found on all podcast apps and Spotify, please, and this YouTube channel, please subscribe to the Patreon. That's patreon.com/360 Gamercast. I hope you all have an awesome day, and I look forward to pumping out some more videos in the very near future. Thank you.